I mean, that's a disaster. Tom Aspinall still can't see. He's got a fucked up right eyeball still.
It's really bad, right?
The reality is he might not ever fight again. Like, who knows? Like, if he has surgery on his eye and it doesn't go well and he can't see out of the eye, apparently he's still fucked up in his right eye. There's some tendon damage or something. And, eyes are so tricky, you never know. Unless you're a fucking complete psychopath like Michael Bisping, who fought 11 fights in the UFC blind in one eye, which is so crazy that he did that.
Look, we need to have a serious conversation here, because despite what some people might think, like those fantasy scenarios people paint, the harsh reality is that fighters actually fall for these comfortable illusions. And let me tell you something, that kind of wishful thinking, that soft mentality where you believe your own hype, it destroys careers faster than anything else in this game. Picture this for a moment. You walk into that cage, the place where warriors are forged and dreams are shattered, carrying even the smallest bit of that false confidence, and you've already lost before the first exchange. This isn't some fairy tale about regional pride or feel-good narratives. This is combat in its purest, most merciless form. The UFC doesn't give a damn about your story, your background, or what motivates you personally. It only respects one thing: absolute savagery. That right there is what separates everything. The crucial element that divides genuine elite fight intelligence and an unbreakable winner's mentality from the real threats versus the starry-eyed wannabes. When your mind is somewhere else, lost in media stories or buying into hollow guarantees from people outside your training, I guarantee your entire preparation is ruined before you even step foot in there. You enter under those scorching lights, face someone who's locked into the cold reality of that moment, and you'll suffer consequences you never imagined possible. That's a truth written in pain and sacrifice, and ignoring it will cost you everything. Now, you're probably thinking why I'm bringing up something like those explosive document releases right in the middle of this conversation, but believe me, there's a direct connection that's absolutely vital to grasping the hidden mechanics of this business. When we discuss reality, about exposing uncomfortable facts, about systems operating behind closed doors that influence the highest levels of power and control, that's precisely the same energy we need for this analysis. We're talking about stripping away the surface appeal, seeing past the manufactured drama, and facing the harsh truths that others prefer to keep hidden. Just like those revelations forced accountability, we need that same merciless examination of the fight game. We're diving into the secrets, the unwritten codes, the behind-the-scenes politics that control far more than what happens on fight night. This is about recognizing that sometimes the most important wars happen nowhere near the cage, in boardrooms where influence and desperation meet. So remember that concept, because it shapes everything we're about to expose. Right, so let's really examine this situation, because the main problem here isn't some accidental finger that happens to find an eye socket. This runs much deeper. We're talking about the mindset someone brings when they enter that octagon. Consider this. You're dealing with a professional athlete, someone competing at the absolute highest level of their craft, who either lacks such basic control that they can't manage their own hands in a critical moment, or, and this is the disturbing possibility, they're intentionally using a questionable tactic. Make no mistake, this isn't some innocent mistake we're discussing. Not at this championship level in the UFC, where every movement, every technique carries title implications and can completely change a career in seconds. And honestly, when you have the kind of accuracy to land an eye strike from what seems like impossible distance with that kind of precision, that's not just unlucky for the other guy. That, my friends, is a technique, a highly questionable technique that completely undermines the legitimacy of the entire contest. The real psychological warfare, the stuff that actually matters, starts long before any contact is made. It begins when fighters anticipate it, when that mental weight forces them to fight completely different, destroying their entire carefully planned strategy. The cold truth is that these kinds of allegations, these suggestions of dirty tactics, extend far beyond any news cycle. They don't just disappear, they become part of a fighter's identity and can define their legacy long after their final fight. It's damage that's nearly impossible to repair. So when we discuss an accident, especially in the ruthless world of the UFC, let's be clear about something important. An accident here is basically just a devastating outcome that you, the competitor, completely failed to anticipate or control. It's not some justification, it's a massive failure. Now consider Tom Aspinall. Do you really think that his firm belief, his certainty that it was intentional, doesn't eat at him? That psychological damage, that sense of being deliberately targeted, is just as real and devastating as any physical injury to his sight. The UFC business, despite all its theater and storylines, doesn't stop for emotions, especially when an entire weight class risks grinding to a halt. They don't spend time analyzing the how or why. Their only question, their single concern, is whether you, the title holder, can compete. Because that precious belt, that crown of dominance, demands constant activity. If you can't rise to the occasion, if you can't protect it, then they'll arrange an interim bout without hesitation. This means your championship, your entire grip on that gold, is living on borrowed time the moment any question, any lingering doubt enters the conversation. It's harsh reality, but it's what defines title reigns. Let's speak honestly here. You constantly hear the complaints, the obvious irritation, people asking why can't the UFC get their biggest stars, their real champions, fighting more regularly? And I'll tell you, it's not just about booking problems or organizational issues. The real problem is the crushing championship burden, that invisible force that makes even the best fighters strategically duck difficult matchups, especially when someone like Jon Jones is established and dominant. When a competitor of his status controls the landscape, other top guys aren't just preparing, they're playing a vicious strategic game of mental chess. They're absolutely terrified to risk their spotless records against such a proven legendary force. And here's the harsh reality. When the elite fighters won't face the elite, the entire championship scene, the whole story we're supposed to care about, becomes nothing but a complete joke. Momentum gets strangled, rankings lose all meaning, and the real devastating impact lands on those few brave enough to actually enter that cage. So I need to ask, are we really watching a sport that celebrates the highest competition, or are we just observing an overpriced, extended standoff? Because too often it feels like the second option, and that's damaging to fans and the sport's credibility. So let's discuss it. We need to address the heavyweight situation, because honestly, this isn't just a division that's having some minor issues. It's actively deteriorating, and if you're a real follower of the sport, you can sense that energy dying. The current rankings, they're basically just an elaborate disguise, hiding a fundamental crisis of championship pressure. We're not seeing the kind of developing fight intelligence, the aggressive, constantly improving tactics that you'd expect from genuine apex predators in this business. Instead, we're getting stagnant, boring, almost painfully dull action. And the devastating effects of this stagnation are destroying the UFC's biggest attractions, exactly where it matters most, in their appeal and fan connection. This isn't just about who's currently holding the top spot. This is about a massive systematic inability to create authentic, compelling stories that genuinely excite and captivate viewers. Listen, if the largest, most powerful athletes on earth, the supposed kings of combat, can't regularly provide the kind of intense, breathtaking entertainment that sells massive pay-per-views and sparks passionate debates, then what does that really tell us about the entire structure, the complete foundation of combat sports? And remember people, we're not discussing some local amateur event here. This is the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the summit of mixed martial arts. So when you see competitors completely exhausted halfway through a fight, looking totally confused like they've forgotten how to compete, that's not just a poor showing. That's a complete, inexcusable collapse of the entire team, a total catastrophic failure in fight intelligence, exactly when it's most crucial under those harsh, merciless spotlights. What you're witnessing are the brutal physical results of a punishing weight reduction colliding with the unforgiving truth of the octagon. And believe me, that kind of display is a direct, painful slap in the face to every fan who paid their money for that pay-per-view. You know who despises this situation? Dana White, absolutely. He's not interested in explanations or apologies. He wants to see starving assassins, fighters who are completely driven and prepared to destroy those rankings with unstoppable hunger. He doesn't want sloppy veterans making the entire brand appear weak and pathetic. These aren't just contests anymore, these are major public declarations, and when you produce that kind of showing, what message are you sending? What clear statement are you making to everyone about your dedication, your preparation, and your honor for the sport and its supporters? It's a defining moment, and some athletes aren't meeting the standard. There's definitely, and let's face it, an obvious divide between the absolute elite at the summit of this division and everybody else. Really, do you honestly think that just being decent is sufficient to enter that brutal octagon with the UFC's top heavyweights? Come on, that's a pleasant fantasy sold to casual viewers who don't understand the savage truth. Just examine what happened with Jairzinho Rozenstruik against talented opposition, skilled fighters without question. But the reality is that higher-level opponents systematically revealed that clear difference in ability and championship preparation. And then, going even further, Tom Aspinall, with his truly superior championship-caliber fight intelligence, didn't just defeat his opponent, he completely destroyed them in moments. That isn't just a skill gap. It's a massive canyon in the rankings, a harsh physical reminder of what happens when you're not performing at the absolute cutting edge of your capabilities. This isn't only about winning battles, it's deeply about surviving the crushing, escalating burden, handling the stylistic challenges that emerge, and weathering the punishing climb toward title opportunities. Every training session for these elite warriors isn't just preparation, it's a calculated total battle. They understand that one mistake, one brief lapse in focus, one small error, and their entire future can end immediately. So we have to wonder, is decent ever really sufficient in this environment, or is it just a direct path into the most dangerous waters possible? Because regardless of past achievements and others feeling overlooked, the truth is excellence always emerges, and the rest either evolve or sink. Let's be completely honest, you're absolutely incorrect if you're attempting to dismiss Cyril Gane after what we've witnessed. This isn't just casual speculation or internet gossip. This is the cold, undeniable truth of the UFC at its most elite level. Don't forget, this competitor took Francis Ngannou, one of the most frightening heavyweights ever, to the absolute limit, testing him beyond what most believed was possible. That submission attempt wasn't panic or desperation. It was a strategic display of pure relentless championship pressure, creating a high-risk opportunity for the finish. And now you want to ignore him, completely discount his ability after just one setback against John Jones. You're completely forgetting, or maybe intentionally ignoring, the sheer caliber of the man who eventually submitted him. We're discussing arguably the greatest competitor of all time here. This isn't simply a defeat in the bigger picture, it's a crucial defining experience that reveals everything about the entire heavyweight landscape. It forces us to seriously question, is one submission, even from the greatest, really enough to completely destroy the future and reputation of a fighter who has demonstrated so much? I'd say no, and we need to see beyond that single result to grasp the complete meaning of what this represents for the division. Honestly, when you hear people discussing someone like Cyril Gane or any rising fighter really, and suggesting we just throw them into the UFC like it's some charitable organization or a generous testing ground, you need to return to reality. That's just not how the UFC functions, especially at the championship level. They keep talking about simple matchups for these guys, pushing to put them in there like it's some gentle development league. And let me ask, do you for one moment actually believe that anyone, anybody at all, ranked in the top 15 of the UFC heavyweight division represents an easy opponent? Do you really think that the crushing championship pressure, the kind that destroys weaker competitors, just magically develops after a few comfortable victories and simple wins? That kind of foolish thinking doesn't just create losses. It gets talented prospects completely and permanently destroyed, ending their careers before they start. This isn't about allowing them space to develop. It's about whether they have that raw, natural fight intelligence, that fundamental survival instinct to not just compete, but to endure the trial of the octagon, or if they'll just become another warning story, another victory for someone stronger. So what does this entire intense conversation really mean for you, the dedicated fan? For us, the people who spend our money on these events, expecting nothing less than pure entertainment. The octagon isn't just a fighting arena, it's a harsh, uncompromising reflection that shows reality. It doesn't just reveal who succeeds and who fails. It fundamentally exposes who is genuinely ready, who has the natural fight intelligence to survive, and crucially, who possesses the unshakable mental strength, the pure determination to relentlessly ascend that brutal ladder. This ongoing myth of being good enough for UFC heavyweight competition, please. It's a dream sold to newcomers, a dangerous fantasy. This isn't about just being skilled. It's about functioning at a level that completely dominates skill. It's about not just surviving, but excelling under the crushing weight of championship expectations, defeating the stylistic problems put in your path, and surviving the punishing effects of an unforgiving weight reduction, all while facing the harsh reality of the brightest spotlight possible. You either have that fundamental drive, that warrior soul to genuinely excel in that dangerous environment, to persistently battle through every challenge and bravely meet that enormous test, or you become another warning tale, a victory for someone who truly possesses what's required. This sport at its highest level requires much more than just ability. It requires an unshakable fighter spirit, an absolute dedication to excellence, and an unstoppable desire to achieve greatness. So I ask you this, what are you prepared to sacrifice to reach that level? Until we meet again, stay hungry.